Before we start, a quick note. This podcast is not a substitute for professional mental health care. If you need support, consider reaching out to a licensed professional. This podcast can include strong language and difficult topics. Pause if you need to. Let's get into it. I'm really glad to welcome Chris Schumacher today. Chris is a visual artist and occasional musician who lives on a small mountainside farm in the hills of Appalachia. Chris grew up in a deeply musical family shaped by Southern musical and religious traditions, and he carried that forward into his early years, studying music at Florida State University. Eventually, he found that singing in grunge bands at bars and house parties felt more alive to him than any keyboard class. These days, alongside his photography and art projects, he's exploring the creation of electronic and ambient music, following his curiosity wherever it leads him. Chris, I'm looking forward to hearing how all of this has shaped the way you see yourself and what it has taught you about where you come from and where you are headed. Welcome to I Feel Like I Should.
Thank you. It's been a little while getting here, and as always, it's always about the journey and not the destination. So,
But I want it to be about the journey.
oh, fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. Let's start with, it has been a long time and we made it happen and I'm really, really excited.
Yes.
A lot of late night conversations that I wish I recorded, but then we couldn't really edit that into something that would last under half an hour. But let's do the icebreaker. What is a song that you secretly love, something that lifts your mood or gets you to kind of feel the feels, even if it wouldn't be something that you would admit to like your friends and family?
Guilty pleasure song.
Yeah.
Well, there are two probably that would get me made most fun of in some circles, which I am totally okay with, as you know. One would be Since You've Been Gone by Kelly Clarkson.
Okay.
And the other one would probably be, and these are just the first ones that pop into mind. I'm sure that I have a long list of embarrassing music somewhere.
Sure.
The other one would probably be Romeo and Juliet by Taylor Swift.
Oh.
Yeah. I crank the knob up to 12 in the car, and in my four-wheel drive pickup truck going on a nice day, I will crank it up to 12 and snap the knob off with the windows down and sing Romeo and Juliet at the top of my lungs. Absolutely.
That is amazing.
And
For a second, you were like Romeo and Juliet. I thought you were going to say like Dire Straits, and I was like, that's I think a safe song.
Yeah. No, Taylor Swift.
I don't know why that would be, but you know what? I'm hearing both of those, like in my left ear, I'm hearing Since You've Been Gone, and in my right ear, I'm definitely hearing Romeo and Juliet, and I kind of like that mashup.
Yeah. Right. I think, years apart, but definitely feeling the girl power vibes and the ballad, anti-ballad fuck you-ness of it all. So yeah. Totally into the teenage girl angst at one point. It was fantastic.
I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really, really great. And with the icebreaker, yeah, it's a guilty pleasure, but it's also just like a lot of fun to see like what gets people going
Oh,
when
yeah.
they just want to be like up or they really want to like get into the mood.
Yeah, those are just I'll be honest with you, those are songs I think for me that I just completely check out and just enjoy the music and just
Yeah,
singing at the top of my lungs. Like, there are other like rage songs and like angry driving songs,
totally.
Rage Against the Machine and all those things from the early 90s, like the fundamental years of my development, getting into young adulthood and music. But yeah, man. My wife has a term that she uses for some of the music I love, and she refers them as the honey voiced harem because it's like, oh, you have all these like sweeties. They got these you got like a little harem in your
I love
iPod.
that.
Yeah, yeah. So
I love that. Well, that's a good transition to like, is there a song or a band like you felt like you should have liked, maybe because everyone else around you did growing up, or you listened to because you wanted to fit in, but privately it just like didn't resonate with you?
yeah, and I'll be honest with you, even to this day. Now, uh, I certainly have more of an appreciation for this particular band now than I ever did early on. Radiohead.
Hmm.
Like, all my smart music friends were so into Radiohead, and I just was like, "I don't get it."
Hmm.
I just don't get it.
Yeah.
Now, absolutely. Like, yes, genius, good stuff. I find things that I like, but I could not get into Radiohead to save my life as a younger person.
Like what was it about Radiohead that you felt like you had to like go along with the crowd?
Uh, it was so outside of the music that I was being raised with
Hmm.
that I mean, there was a part of me that as a young person that wanted to fit in with the cool kids, right? Everybody wanted
Mhm.
to be cool.
Yeah.
And I was the fun, smart, funny, whatever kind of guy in that group of friends, but I was not necessarily the hip one. Like we grew up pretty poor, I want to think. I think that
Yeah.
to my parents' credit, we never knew that when we were growing up. But when I look back now, I was like, oh, okay. I see how much we didn't have. And it was like, but we had no idea back then.
Yeah.
But as a result of that, it's like all my friends that had all the cool clothes and who had all the cool, they were the first ones to get the Duran Duran cassette tapes when they first came out,
Got it.
right? That kind of a thing. So it made me, okay, these kids are all into it, so I should probably be into it. Like just maybe that's what cool kids do. So that I think that's what back then in those very young days, the version of Chris that you would not recognize today, the very shy and retiring, like very embarrassed, uh, yeah, yeah, wanting desperately to fit in with the cool kids. That person to me felt like Radiohead was one of the things that I needed to do that.
Yeah. Were there other bands besides Radiohead, or was that like the main one driving like the crowd?
I'm just trying to think. So Radiohead was the big standout for me. I mean, there were a lot of bands kind of like that in that vein back then, that were just so outside of what was more traditional. Like even in the 80s and early 90s kind of stuff, the 80s um, industrial and like what we call old wave now, but like some of those bands were so far outside of what was pop music, which is a lot of what I grew up with, was like pop and traditional country music and
Yeah.
traditional religious music.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff, like the stuff that was on the radio, absolutely fantastic. Like I was totally down with the top 5 at 9.
Yeah.
Uh, somewhere there are cassette tapes of me recording myself at, like 13 or 14 doing
Oh
my
man.
own version of Top 5 at 9 with Rock Me Amadeus coming in at number 1.
Oh
Oh,
wow.
yeah, yeah.
Like you doing
Oh, yeah, Casey Kasem, full on oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Would you say with Radiohead, I mean, Was it Pablo Honey? Was it Creep? Like, what was the song that drove, like, again, that was like the song of Radiohead at the time that you were like, yeah, this is awesome. And then you're like, dude, I don't understand this music.
Yeah, so Creep was the one that like everybody just latched onto,
Sure.
right? And I had friends that got into like super deep cuts and they were smart kids. And these are friends today. It's really interesting. I have a couple of friends today who, when I look back and even now, are big influences on the music that I like and that I listen to. I have a friend that you met recently, Dave,
Yeah.
from Florida, and Dave is an English teacher. He teaches high school. He teaches English and TV production. And for years, Dave is the one who introduced me to like Dinosaur Jr. And
Oh, wow.
oh yeah, because it's albums that his students were listening to. And Dave was, so this is a fun thing. Like I had a grunge band in college. Dave was a bass player in like this alt rock band. I'll have to tell you a story another time, but like I was managing a retail store at the mall, and one of the guys that worked for me at the retail store at the mall was the guitar player in Dave's band. And this was easily 10 years before I ever met Dave and became best friends. He was really into this really smart music and has really good music tastes. And when he and I became really good friends in the early 2000s, like we would always just trade music. And then I come to find out a lot of the music that I was getting was all of whatever the coolest new stuff that all of his high school, his edgy high school students, the cool rejects that were in his class were like wanting to sit around and talk about
Yeah.
music and stuff. So yeah, so folks like that. And Creep was probably the big one back then because it was so
Yeah.
different from what was just playing on regular radio.
No, totally.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm curious, like around that time too, like growing up, like what were other shoulds you were feeling in those like adolescent years? And where do you think they were coming from internally, externally, friends, family, culture? Like what were those other things for you?
Yeah, so I grew up in what I would consider the deep South. I grew up in Central Florida, and a lot of folks are like, "Oh, that's not the South." No, not until you come here and visit. But a lot of shoulds. There was a lot of rule following without question in the South, especially church and things like that, and that being being all in on the religiosity of things was
Mm.
important.
Hmm.
Not necessarily the actual message or the lessons to take from things that you might in church and from other people, but the religiosity of it all and the performative nature of being, I'm using air quotes, being religious.
Mm.
There was a lot of shoulds around that, and there were a lot of things that I was, and one way that I did not necessarily fit in was around things like church. I grew up going to church every single Sunday morning of my life until I was probably 18 and moved away for college. I had some really great friendships, but church kind of felt a lot like peer pressure.
Like in what way?
Well, like the whole, like where I grew up, it was just expected. And I had a lot of questions, which which I don't know how many serious Baptist ministers you've ever sat down and had deep conversations with, but questions
Not
aren't all
many.
questions for some reason didn't go really well. Like just well, that was God's will. Well, why? Why did he do that?
Yeah.
Or, oh, well, that these terrible things must happen because they were a way of testing someone's faith. Well, and I'm going to get heavy. Why would you kill someone's child to test their faith? That seems shitty. And it was just like, oh, okay, well, I understand. Oh, do you? Yeah, I understand that we're never going to agree, and that I'm gonna keep coming to church because it makes my parents happy. I have friends here, and
Keeping steady.
keep it steady, right? The square peg is the one that gets hammered down. Um, and I was already a little bit of a black sheep, like in some ways, but or at least starting to feel out the edges of that when that as the questions came.
Yeah.
So that was an easy way to just kind of go with the flow, so to speak. And I got to be honest, the Rice Krispie treats and the Frito taco salad at after church lunch on Sundays was probably worth the price of admission. So
That sounds pretty good.
It was pretty good.
Can you recall a moment, like a moment in your life in that time period, or a person in that time period who made those shoulds like especially real for you?
Yeah, I would say it's hard thinking about it. It's hard to pick just one.
Yeah, name a few.
Yeah, so it was everywhere where I grew up. Everywhere. Um, and in a small town, it was not uncommon that in places where you might want to go and act up with your friends and be counter to those kinds of things and behave in ways or
They're religious things.
yeah, just do things that counter to what and yeah, just regular life stuff.
Yeah.
It was not uncommon to turn around and one of the elders that you go to church with be standing across the way somewhere.
Oh, wow.
And not, and nobody was ever like, giving you the eye and like I'm watching you kind of a thing, but it was a fairly constant reminder that you were growing up in a place where it felt like everybody else had fallen in line
And like, what were the pressures then? Like, what were you expected to do?
to fit in. And when I say that, I mean not being not having necessarily and I feel like we were supported to be whoever we wanted to be to an extent growing up. Like my parents were very open and very supportive, but there's a piece of me that wonders how far that would have gone if I had felt more comfortable in pushing the boundaries of who I was early, like the creative edges of me and exploring more rather than just fitting in and doing what everybody else was doing because that's what you do.
Was it like a pretty heteronormative expectation?
Oh, it was very traditional gender role, heteronormative, very especially in the relationships with people and other guys and dudes. It was a very there were a lot of macho undertones in some of that stuff. A lot of athletics and a lot of sports, which I love, totally love those things. But part of the way that I stood out was that I didn't necessarily enjoy those things, but I still did them anyway.
Yeah,
It was probably obvious to some people, but not to me that I was like
you were performing.
I was just performing because that was what was expected.
And I'm wondering, like, that's a pretty deep root to get hold, right? You're growing up in that space and in like really pivotal time as an adolescent. Like how those pressures or those shoulds that are there, how those pass over time for you.
Well, I'll tell you, it took me years and years and lots of work to figure one to recognize those for what they were. Um, like those pressures, I'll tell you, those pressures and that growing up the way that I did are the reason that I got married at 19 the first time
Hmm.
because it was the first girl that I was being really sexually active with.
Hmm.
And that's what you do. She wasn't pregnant, she wasn't anything else, but that was the first girl that I was like really, in love with and sexually active with. So that, of course, that's who you're going to marry. And I was 19 years old and nobody looked at me and said, that's not a good idea. Nobody looked at me and said, that's not a good idea. I had one buddy who was like, hey, my car's outside. If you want to leave, we can leave right now.
Wow.
And you met Jason Reese.
Yeah. You had an exit plan, but you couldn't see the exit plan.
Yeah, Jason was the best man at my first wedding.
Wow. Man, if I had known that when I first met him, poof,
Yeah,
next time.
but he was like, "Hey, car's outside. Just say when." Yeah, I mean, it took a long time, Keith. That's the thing, right? It took me a long time. It took, and to be honest, it took moving further away and being outside of that to be able to
Yeah.
kind of take a step back and to meet people who didn't grow up the way that I did, like more
Yeah.
of them, right?
Yeah.
In settings that weren't things like work related, that weren't things like church related, or these really formal organizational structures. To meet friends who the only expectation is that you're just going to be a good friend and that you're just going to be yourself, and that those two things exist no matter what they are. So
Yeah.
so that's how they kind of passed for me. But even today, there are moments where it's like, okay, I got to do this thing. Like, and it's just I have a responsibility to take care of X, Y, and Z, and that's just.
That's coming from that time period.
I think so. I think so. There are bits and pieces of that, right? And I think there are probably things that we all struggle with mightily some days more than others. And I think I'm a way. I told somebody recently that 20-year-old me would be aghast at 50-year-old me.
I think that was me. Yeah, no, it totally was. And I think my response was like, I think you turned out better than that
Oh,
person thought it would be.
I it would be a hard sell, I can tell you, but
Oh yeah,
I think eventually that person would get it, right? But I think 20-year-old me would get it eventually, but it would be a
that's
hard sell at
funny.
first, yeah.
Yeah, no, that totally like moving into that time period where we are now, or like past that kind of area, but obviously still there and internally working through what are the shoulds you're feeling now in your life, and where do you think those are coming from, and how are you working with those?
Yeah, so I think shoulds right now still some of the societal pressures around what does it mean to be a good partner versus what I grew up with, and how do you support somebody? So good example of this. My wife was, I say was, a federal employee, right? And we're
Yeah.
living in the time now when many people who had been career fantastic, amazing people at what they did and supporting the country in so many different ways are no longer doing that. After almost 20 years, she left federal service, and we sat down and had a conversation, and it was like, okay, what are we going to do? Like, what do we need to do financially? What do we need to do? Um, and there are moments where the thing that I want, the should that I've have fought against, when we have these conversations, I'm like, you know what? The thing that I do say, which I'm very proud of, is you're an amazing person. You've got all these things that you want to explore, and we have an amazing home, and we have this farm that we're trying to build out and continue to grow. And maybe you just take care of those things, and maybe you explore this other creative stuff that you're wanting to do and see what comes of that. Take that time. There are two questions, and I mentioned this to you, I think, in just conversation recently. There's two questions I ask myself pretty regularly, and I'll give you an example in a second of as recently as like 2 hours ago. The first one is, what do I want? Right. And I mean, what do I really want in life? Like, what does it? And the other one is, and this is the one that I struggle with the most, is how much is enough?
Mm,
And I try to practice a very abundance and progress forward kind of mindset, like general,
yeah.
try to be optimistic. So when my wife decided to leave federal service, my public and deep internal conversation words with her is, listen, this is a good opportunity. Go explore. We're going to be okay. Life might look differently than what we thought it was going to be, and that's okay. We just make it. We had a plan. Now we're just going to make a different plan. There's that part of me, and then there's the should part of me that I struggle with that goes, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're not going to have a job.
Right.
I've got to do everything. I've got to
Right.
like this is 100% on me, and no matter what, like I have to stick with a job that I hate. I have to do things that I don't like because I have to provide, like those kinds of shoulds." And what I think it does is I think it traps people, and I know it does me. It creates a situation where you don't see opportunities and options that are right in front of your face because
Yeah.
you're so focused on
Yeah, you
in
got the
the
blinders on.
oh, you're so focused on these patterns that are just ingrained in you for so long. And even though you might work on them, and I feel like I've done a great job, I still have moments where I'm like, okay, yeah, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but that's one that's a recent one.
Yeah.
Another solid example of that is I was on a work trip this week, and I met with some folks yesterday who are doing work that I think is really valuable and is really supportive of a mission that I believe in.
Yeah.
It's not the part of the organization that I work for, and I told the director of this org, yesterday. I'm like, hey, let's talk while I'm here with you guys. I want to talk to you later. And so we went to lunch and came back, and he's like, hey, let's go talk. And I'm like, yeah. So we go into a room, and he goes, so what do you want to talk about? And he's super positive and very supportive guy. And I said, well, I want to join your team. I want to be part of this, because it is evident you guys are amazing and all these things. And he goes, and he looks at me and he goes, that's fantastic. That's exactly what I hoped you wanted to talk about. So as far as we're, yeah. And then I got an email today from somebody else that was like, hey, I'm going to be retiring, different part of the organization, very different. I'm going to be retiring in a few months, and I have your name at the top of my succession plan. And I was telling this certain vice president about you, and can you send me your resume because I want to share it, and blah, 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 blah. And he says he needs people that do exactly the kind of communication that you do, and all these executive blah, blah, blah. And here I'm standing at two paths. One of those is a path of people who want me because to use the words, to use the words that the director looked, and I almost cried. I was just so excited yesterday. He looked at me and he goes, we're having a conversation, and the guy is looking at me, and his eyes are big, and he's smiling, and he's just nodding his head the whole time I'm talking. And when I get done, he goes, brother, he goes, you are cut from the same cloth as me and the rest of this team. Because you are a perfect fit, and as far as I'm concerned, it's a done deal. We just need to work it out. And then there's that. And then I have the other piece of this that fits right in with some of that angst and anxiety of here is a path of more traditional upward mobility and ladder climbing, and more money and more visibility and more, all those things. And it's like, okay, what's important? What do you want? And that's a question the guy asked me yesterday, which was, I don't know about you, but I don't have a lot of people that ask me that. And mean it.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah. And so when we were talking about it yesterday, and he looks at me, he goes, yeah, this is what the job is. And he goes, I have no doubt whatsoever that you'll accomplish anything I put in front of you. And he goes, but what's really important is what do you want?
Yeah.
And he meant it. And so we had a conversation, and that's not been part of any of this other conversation. So it's like, okay, what do I want? Here I am at a fork in the road, so to speak. And it's pushing against some pretty hard edges of what's important.
What are the shoulds?
What should I do? Right. Yeah.
Yeah. What should I do? And and again, like that pressure of like, what should I be like, and how should I act, and what is expected of me?
Yeah.
No, I really, I wish we had like a whole another half an hour to go into that. No, it's really, really great. As you're talking, every now and then I keep hearing since you've been gone in my head. This is like really hard.
Yeah.
As long as in my head. So let's get that song out of my head.
Yeah.
I'm putting together a playlist. What is a song you feel like other people right now should listen to?
If I can only pick one.
Yeah, one.
Think off the top of my head. There's a band called Y Oak, and it's WYE, which I got to be honest with you, makes me laugh. There's a band called Y Oak from North Carolina, and there is a song titled Civilian, and it is a total man, I don't know what it is about that song, but whenever I put it on, I cannot play it quietly.
All right.
And it is just a really driving song, and yeah. And it's really funny as I'm sitting here thinking about some of the lyrics, how it fits in with the themes that we're sitting here talking about, and I hadn't even thought about it that way.
I love when that works out.
Like one of the lyrics is, I've got friends, but I can barely keep up with them.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just such a and her the lead singer's voice is just so amazing, and it's just a duo. It's just a duo, and
I'll definitely listen to that one.
Yeah. So I would say that's something people should be listening to. Y Oak.
All right.
Yeah. That'd be my one pick.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for being here and for really digging in deep. And I just really appreciate the conversation. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks, Keith. Anytime.
You've been listening to I Feel Like I Should. More at ifeellikeishould.com and on Instagram at I Feel Like I Should pod. I'll see you next time.